and gentlemen, in a few minutes, we will be landing at Bilbao Airport. Please keep fastened your seat belts. Put the back of your seats in an upright position and do not smoke until
TVI goes with a party of Welsh trade unionists and unemployed to Spain. Their quest? To discover if workers' cooperatives could bring new wealth to valleys stricken by unemployment. The reporter, Llew Gardner.
Vital to the success of the Mondragon Co-op is its own People's Savings Bank. The bank approves new enterprises and expects each worker to invest at least £2,000 in the project. The bank is the first stop for a delegation from the Wales TUC, who have come to see whether the Mondragon success can be exported. The unemployed in the delegation know that starting up their own co-op may offer the only hope for the future. But straight away, the bank chairman made it clear that there are no easy answers for those hoping to become their own bosses. Management consultant Chris Logan, a member of the Welsh delegation, acted as interpreter.
Make loans. Let me tell you that I will therefore give you a barbarous answer in reply. And that is, work hard, invest hard. Invest it all, capitalize it, build it up, and consume little. Because we've never found any other sources of real resources than hard work, hard investment, and application. Going beyond that, and I would tell you that when we set up our little cooperatives, we used to work 60 hours a week.
The Basques started their co-op 25 years ago because they had nowhere to go but up. It is a situation the Welsh can understand only too well.
How do we go?
The South Wales the delegates left behind them is a land scarred by an unemployment rate of over 13%. For those who remain, it must seem as if no one is listening or caring. Last year, 47,000 jobs were lost in South Wales. The patriotic exhortations remain, but in factory after closed factory, there is no one to heed them. Industries die, machines stop, the power is switched off, and each delegate to Spain reacts differently to the shock of unemployment.
A week after we had the notice, everyone was walking around just like zombies. They were worried about what was going to happen because they knew there wasn't much hope of them getting a job in this locality.
I'll never forget it. It was the day my daughter's birthday, and he just called me into the office because I asked to see him. And he said, well, I'm sorry, Joyce, he said, I've got to close the factory. So I said, well, John, when are you closing? He said, I'm afraid tomorrow.
It's a demoralizing thing for anybody to be out of work, and it lowers one's morale to think that you're not needed, you know. That is one of the things that come over very strong to me.
Steel and pit closures and layoffs have added to the problems facing the Wales TUC. Traditionally, the trade union movement has sought to combat unemployment by political means. But in Wales, the leadership has been asked by men with redundancy money in their pockets for something more than rhetoric. But how do you finance and start a co-op? The problem was set out in Wales by delegation leader and Wales TUC General Secretary George Wright.
We have found in a closure situation where the workers feel aggrieved that they've been coming to us with requests to assist them in developing workers' cooperatives. When the bosses let them down, they've wanted to run the plant themselves. We've found when there's large-scale redundancies in the steel industry that those people who have a check in the form of compensation want to use that check in occupying themselves by the development of a small cooperative. We have not been able to give them the help that they wanted.
Most British co-ops fail because of lack of cash, and in Spain money was on George Wright's mind. Again, the Welsh were reminded that the Basques do not pull punches.
What if the worker in a cooperative does not wish to continue? Can he withdraw? And if he withdraws, does he take with him his share deposit and the credits that he has up until that time?
Sí, el problema, este es un serio problema.
People don't usually leave a cooperative, and they only do so, obviously, if they die or they retire, because a cooperative is really a question of working and having a job for life. If we guarantee you full employment and we guarantee all the benefits of cooperative membership, we don't expect you to run in and run out.
You've already formed a nucleus for a new cooperative. and you've selected your workers, and all of a sudden you realise that half of these workers cannot raise the collateral necessary to go in.
No.
How do they get the wherewithal? They haven't got any assets they can realise. They're broke. So how do they realise the money to enter the cooperative?
El problema que plantea el señor es un problema muy práctico, muy vivo.
Well, that's a very practical and a very live issue. I'll tell you, we resolve it brutally. We couldn't suddenly discover that people who wanted to form a cooperative didn't have the money to do it. We'd find that out pretty fast, and they would know pretty fast that they would have to be in a position to find the money. So really, that's the first test. You want to form a cooperative? Well, you go and find the money with which to do it.
If adversity is the spur, then the Basques need no second encouragement. To the suffering of the Civil War was added Franco's cynical neglect. But throughout it all, the Basques have retained their own individuality and fierce nationalism. It was something the Welsh could recognise and appreciate. Even the defaced bilingual road signs looked familiar. There were other reminders of home. Campaigning is second nature to the Basques. This poster calls for a shorter working week, but it is the struggle for independence that dominates. The Welsh began their foot-slogging grand tour in the Mondragon Research Centre. The Basques believe that co-ops, like delegations, should keep moving. To Gwyn Jenkins, after a lifetime in engineering, it must have all looked very familiar.
It's true. I'm just wondering how much of the machine tools they've made themselves.
But like all the delegation, Gwyn was determined to learn, however difficult the task.
All been made here. The whole lot. Have you made it here? Everything. How many parts of this have you made here now?
How many?
How many?
Back home in Wales, Gwyn has learned the hardest lesson, that you start from the bottom. The engineering shop where he worked in Aberystwyth closed in January. Since then, Gwyn and a handful of workers have been employed stripping down the machinery. Self-help has a special meaning for Gwyn and his workmates. Within days of receiving notice, they decided their factory should reopen as a workers' co-op. Their own financial commitment of £300 each is small, but they hope for grants from government and local bodies. Before he set off for Spain, the way ahead seems simple enough to Gwyn.
Are you doing it because you really believe in co-ops, or you've become late converts at least to believing in co-ops, or simply because you're desperate for a job?
Well, I would say it's because we aren't desperate for a job, but there have been a few of us who thought all along the last few years that cooperatives are a way out of this unemployment situation that we're in today. That given the chance, if a worker can create a job for himself, a permanent job, well, he's going to look after the job and he's going to work hard at it.
In Spain, Gwyn carried on working hard for understanding.
You're doing this job here now, aren't you? You're tapping your holes.
Yep.
You do the holes, the taps, the threads. In here, for the bolts.
Success. Gwyn could see that the co-op has brought prosperity to Mondragon. Unemployment has been sent packing, much like the dragon that legend has it now skulks in the mountain above the town. But today there is a hint of a new fear. Co-op profits are down. Only the bank is doing really well. There has been a dramatic cut in the birth rate of new enterprises. The Mondragon people struggled when they first founded their co-op in the middle of a world boom. Now the struggle continues in the effort to ride the prolonged slump. Tower blocks dominate the skyline, but everything does not have to be on such a vast scale. The bank is the financial umbrella for the co-op movement, but each small enterprise must stand on its own feet. This typical small co-op in Mondragon is still doing well. Joyce Shute has lessons to learn. Back home, she is involved in a co-op experiment. Now she wants to know how small can be made viable.
How many did they have when they started here?
We had 13 when they started
13?
13 la formazione. Sì, bueno, incluso los que comenzaron creo que fueron, no sé, 10 o... Yes, he said they had 10 in fact in the first few days, and then 3 more joined them very quickly. Ya emplean 400, ¿no?
¿Eh?
Aquí cuántos ya?
Ahora,
Ahora.
el barbecue, no, 60.
And now we're 60. We're up to 60 now.
60 people.
And so he feels that's quite reasonable. He said a good small cooperative is just as good as a big cooperative. The thing that you have to have is good organisation, good understanding what it is that you're doing, and a lot of high degree of solidarity and mutual support. If you have those sort of things, then really this cooperative could grow to be bigger and bigger.
The success of this co-op is a boost to Joyce's hopes. 3 months ago, she was happy working for a boss. Then the blouse factory where Joyce worked in the valley town at Bargoed collapsed overnight. But Joyce and 16 of her companions refused to be thrown out on the streets. They formed their own co-op to carry on the business. Their cash commitment of £50 a head is pitifully small, but they have done well. Contracts to supply big firms have been kept. The co-op has expanded and recruited 2 school leavers. There is no manager. In Bargoed, all are equal. Is it different working for yourself?
Well, I think so. I mean, John was very good. He was a very good boss. But when we are on our own, we make our own decisions, and we seem to be getting on very well.
In Spain, Joyce learned that equality is not enough.
We can't be equal as we are now. That there must be a manager structure, and that manager structure must come from the workers.
By now, Joyce had also learned the importance of strong financing.
Well, I believe that to start small cooperatives, we must have financial help for our children to build something for the future for themselves.
Here, if a lad wishes to invest for the future, well, there is always the bookies. School leavers' ambitions are hardly worth an each-way bet. But there may be fresh hope. Soon this tumble-down boys' club will be reborn as a training school. The inspiration is that of unemployed steelworker Jim Ryan and some of his friends. Before setting off for Spain, Jim spoke of his hopes.
So what our eventual aim is to go into the Youth Opportunities Programme, take advantage of it, make use of the funds, get the kids started into the project, and say in a year or 2 we will be well established as far as a product end is concerned, and then we will form a cooperative and make the youngsters part of the cooperative. That if the Basque people could do that in their country under a fascist regime, well, there was great hopes for us, and there was a lot that we could learn from them, because they must have faced really insurmountable difficulties in getting that kind of project off the ground in the structure that they were at the time.
In Spain, Jim watched the apprentices at work and decided that the Basques had indeed something else to teach our country. But full understanding did not come easy. At the end of a long first day in Mondragon, the delegation was in a sombre mood. George Wright set the tone.
It's not a system that's going to be easy to export. There may be features of it that we could work on and develop, but we certainly couldn't take the Mondragon experiment and just transplant it into Wales and expect it to succeed. It couldn't be. I've already formed that opinion after the first day. Every co-op fails in our country because in the end of financial resourcing.
George's somewhat pessimistic words reflected the mood of the delegation. Doubt hung in the air. Joyce was asked if the Bargoed workers would support a system that involved a constant ploughing back of profits. She was not enthusiastic.
No, I don't think so. I think they'd be willing to put half. But I think, you know, working so hard, I think they'd want something out.
People are, generally speaking, used to certain conditions of work. They are used to certain wage norms. And if you did set up a cooperative, you would be hard-pressed to find people to put the kind of money in to projects as we've seen these people are prepared to.
I think we need to examine whether or not those things can be done in Wales. But what we need to do is we need to look tomorrow at those. Can we help out Glyn with his engineering works in Aberystwyth? Can we help out Bargoed Blows? Can we help them develop? Can we develop a bank? Where do we get our reserves? All of these things we can talk about again tomorrow.
perhaps the Welsh were just tired. By the next morning, a new spirit of inquiry had taken over.
Not as a worker in this particular factory.
If they've got any industrial dispute or something, how do they
They
settle
don't have
it?
industrial disputes.
Have they ever been on strike
They
or
have a
anything?
workers' council.
If they have a grievance, how
If
do
they have a
go about-
grievance, they go to their workers' council, which is a democratically elected body which represents them with the management.
The Welsh gasped at the Basques' dedicated work rate, but George's pessimism had vanished amid the clatter.
I've changed my mind completely. I'm less sceptical. The workforce is mobile. It's a modern plant. They've got some of the most sophisticated machinery I've seen. The product is good and the organisation is good. So it's raised my hopes. I'm less dubious about a project like this in Wales. These people own this plant. It is theirs. I think it's magnificent. It's the spirit of the whole enterprise that we've been examining in the last few days.
The mood had certainly changed. The new optimism would stay with the Welsh throughout the rest of the tour. It carried them forward into the last day of their visit when George Wright signed an agreement with the bank.
No, George. Thank you.
There have been more sweeping documents. Little more was agreed than an exchange of information, a promise to arrange joint marketing developments, and the foundation of future agreements between Welsh and Basque co-ops. But a start had been made. George Wright was happy, and Les Paul, vice chairman of the Wales TUC, was delighted with his piece of paper.
Our appreciation, not only for signing this very historic document, but also for the facilities that the bank has put at our disposal. They've made the visit worthwhile. We've learned a lot. We will be thinking a lot about your experience and hoping to translate it into our own experiences. And thank you again.
But Jim, Joyce and Gwyn did not need a signed document to remind them that they had learned something of real value in their lives.
Well, I've been amazed at what these people have done, because they've had to work really hard at it. And the way, what I've seen, the way they've carried on here, that we've been trying to start a cooperative, but we've got to have a rethink on it, because I don't think that we have been as committed as these people have, both financially and physically as well.
But will the valleys sing a welcome to the delegates' message? There are crucial differences between Wales and Spain. The Basques are 100% committed to the cooperative ideal. In this country, most people form co-ops only as a last resort. British trade union attitudes and rules would sit uneasily in Mondragon. British banks show little enthusiasm in backing workers' projects. Yet at the end of the day, George Wright was bubbling confidence.
We've learned a great deal, and we go home encouraged by what we've seen, and with the thought in our minds that we can take some of what is here and begin to develop cooperatives in Wales.
Do you really think you can? I mean, there are a lot of things going for this co-op that you just haven't got in Wales, like, for instance, this bank.
Well, the bank is the most important, the most crucial. We have to talk to the co-op bank. We do have already a cooperative bank in Britain. They may be able to fulfil the function of this bank, and it is a key, central feature of the whole experiment. If they are not able to do that, then we shall have to set up in competition with them.
Of course, yours has been specifically, George, a Welsh delegation dealing with Welsh problems. Yes. But what you're talking about, surely, is a revolution in thinking and about how you do about unemployment that could affect the whole British trade union movement, could it not?
Oh, I'm confident that it will. I hope that it does. I don't want the world to go on as it's been for the last 100 years. We want some changes and we want some more participation. The situation we've been examining here is, of course, a Basque experience, not a Spanish experience. What we're going to do is conduct a Welsh experience, and I'm sure with the energy and with the sense of commitment that we now have and the skills that we've been developing, that we'll be able to help people in other parts of our own country too.
Gwyn shoves the idle machinery from the workshop. With it goes his past and many old attitudes. Today, the Welsh TUC took the next step down the Co-op road with a special meeting in Cardiff. But Wynne knows thinking will have to change.
It's not just a question of joining a cooperative or trying to start a cooperative just to create a job for yourself. It's a way of life. Everyone that's in the group is dependent on one another. It isn't just a question of I'm all right, never mind you. Everyone has got to work together, they've got to pull together, and there'll have to be a change of attitudes. I think we've got to step back a little bit, that instead of being, well, we had a reason to be demanding before, but now any demands that we'll make will be demands on ourselves.